Hi everyone! In this video, I'm gonna show you how I made this magical pumpkin cake. For the filling, I chose soft honey sponges with cream cheese and some salted caramel. Since I need my cake to be shaped like a pumpkin, I will need to carve it later. But I don't like carving too much or having excess scraps, so I made the top and bottom sponges smaller. This way, I won't need to carve as much. Now I'm doing the crumb coat, which is just the thin layer of frosting to seal in all the crumbs. The next step is carving the cake into a pumpkin shape. I'm placing the cake scraps from trimming on top to round out the pumpkin shape. This also helps keep the waste to a minimum. For the final coat, as always, I'm using chocolate ganache. Actually, using a piping bag to apply ganache would make your life much easier, but I like taking my time with that, so I used spatula and a palette knife. After applying ganache all over the cake, the next step is smoothing it really well, because this layer will define the final pumpkin shape and make the fondant go on flawlessly. For this rounded design, I am using a flexible plastic cake smoother, because regular scrapers won't really work here. Now it's time to cover the cake with fondant. I'm rolling it out to a medium thickness, not too thin so it doesn't tear, but not too thick either. It also helps to dust the surface with a little cornstarch or powdered sugar to keep the fondant from sticking while you roll it out. Before putting fondant on a cake, I lightly brush the surface with a little water to help the fondant stick. The brush should be just moist, not soaking wet, so you don't leave big drops on the cake. Covering a cake with fondant can be a little tricky, because you want to avoid tears, wrinkles and folds. The key is to work slowly, gently pulling the fondant down while smoothing it against the cake. Take your time going around the cake, straightening as you go. After the cake is covered and the excess fondant is trimmed, I'm using a modeling tool to draw thin, vertical lines. This adds texture and helps the pumpkin look more natural. Then I'm using brown powdered food color to add some shading. Now I'm adding the first detail, the stem on top of the pumpkin. I didn't use any mold here, just sculpted it by hand and added a bit of texture with a modeling tool. To attach details like this, I mostly use a little bit of water or sometimes an edible glue. Next, I rolled out some brown fondant and used the wood grain impression mat to create texture. Then I cut out the shape of a door and add little details to it. For the stone details, I didn't use any molds either. I just used marbled fondant and marked out the stone shapes by hand. I keep adding more details to the cake, like vines and little pumpkins. These finishing touches are so important because they bring the whole design together and give it that whimsical, charming look. To make the haystack, I shaped a piece of yellow fondant into a rectangle and used small clean scissors to create the spiky texture. Then I brushed on a bit of dry brown coloring to bring out the texture and add dimension. As for the leaves, I used maple leaves mold, and I made my leaves in several different colors so that they look more natural. Here I'm adding some edible moss to finish off the look. If you'd like to learn how to make it, I have the recipe available on my Etsy. You'll find the link in the description. Even though the cake already looked very cute, I wanted to add more details, so I decided to make 2 windows as well. To make them, I cut out squares through the fondant and ganache, scooped out some cake with a spoon, and then sealed the hollows with a thin layer of ganache. For the glass, I used isomalt. Working with it can be a bit tricky because you need to catch it at the right temperature. If you remove the strips while it's still too liquid, the edges won't be smooth. But if you wait too long, it will set too hard and can crack when you try to remove it. The good news is, there is a fix. If your isomalt hardens too much, you can gently melt it again with a torch to make it workable. Before placing the glass onto the windows, I placed these little LED lights inside so the pumpkin house lights up like a real little cottage. And here it is, a cozy pumpkin cottage straight out of a fairy tale.